Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Review anything and everything. And today we're getting into a long-awaited video that I wanted to do a long while back, but I had this in storage and I didn't get a chance to really get to it. So I'm definitely late to the party. So I know this product has been reviewed a whole bunch, but I'm hoping that you guys will just appreciate my review being a little bit differently because I like to do things a little bit differently and get into a few things that are a little bit different. So first I want to say that this packaging is very it's very annoying getting into this packaging, and the reason why is because I'm going to take Triceratops and move over to the side for a little bit. First, let me mention the name of the product is the Habitat Defender Triceratops. Now, for the Dino Trackers line, anybody who's already familiar with this knows that this is kind of the definitive Triceratops because it's the first Triceratops that is actually of a decent size. Um, I'm going to see if I can grab one of my other Triceratops and then compare it with this one side by side a little bit later into the video. Now, jumping into this whole thing with the box, as I mentioned, one of the biggest issues here, and I taped it up just to kind of bring it back to form, you don't have that little cutout anymore on the bottom where you can get to the little twisty pegs. So essentially, you got to really rip this apart just to get to the twisty pegs down below. At least that's what I've seen. So like I said, I just taped up the box so it could be informed for the video because this is an unboxing and I just unboxed it just a little bit before this. Well, actually, my kids unboxed it a little bit before this. So one-time assembly with the tail. You can see on the side, it talks about it being 60%. This is relating to the recycling material, but it's certified plastic here. Okay, I thought this was all in Spanish, so you can see it there. ISCC certified plastic. Obviously, it makes reference to it here. And the only time you had something similar to this was the Ocean Defender, which was for the Mosasaur, which had a similar material of the figure. You see right here, and it has the whole desert-like on the back. And here you see the figure here. And that's pretty much it. We're going to jump into the figure now. So here you go here. This Triceratops is huge. And the thing about it is everyone used to always say we never had a proper scaled Triceratops. Let me bring in one of the other ones just for scale right now. I'm not going to go into measuring one of the other ones, and I will measure the new one a little bit later in the video. But you could see here just the size difference is huge. It's massive. They're not even comparable. If I try to hold them at an angle where you could see them straight on, you could see that it's just huge. So a lot of people would say, and I noticed this years back too, that the Jurassic Park in the movie was not the size of what the Triceratops in the movie. I think I said the Jurassic Park in the movie. The Triceratops in the movie was not to the size of a full-grown Triceratops. Now, we know this based on the fact that the measurements to a proper Triceratops is roughly about 10 feet tall, and it's about 30 feet long. And they have the mass of weighing about 6 tons. And I used to always say to myself, well, they're smaller than the T-Rex, but how do they weigh almost the same size as the T-Rex? Well, once you get really that scope of how bulky they are, even though they may not be as long as a T-Rex or as tall as a T-Rex, when you get that idea of that the whole bulk of it is that big, you realize that it would weigh about that much. And this is a perfect depiction of that. Now, obviously, this Triceratops, and I used to watch videos and compare with this Triceratops here and say, this one was actually to scale with the one inside the movie. So a lot of people would say, no, the one in the movie was bigger than what it is. No, it really wasn't. I have Owen here just as a comparison. Now the angle of my camera is, being that it's on a tripod, it's not ground level. But I just want you to know that it Owen is roughly, his head is at a little bit below the top of the back of this Triceratops, and he's a little bit below the frill. And that is the size of how the Triceratops was inside the movie. Grant will be able to put his whole body over the stomach. It was big, but it wasn't like bigger than a car. And essentially, Triceratops is bigger than a car because he's bigger than an elephant. And that's the thing that people didn't realize when they're looking at that scene. They're not realizing that a Triceratops makes an elephant look small, essentially, because he's longer. He's roughly about the same height, but he's just got so much more bulk to him. Now, before I jump into the details of the figure, I'm going to jump right into doing the measurements. Because you guys know I like doing my little conversions and getting a sense of scale for all the figures and the dinosaurs that I do. And I'm basing this all around the 3.3 3 and 3/4 inch figure being 6 feet tall as an average height. So this measurement I'm getting here is 16 inches. And the height at the hip area is a, a little bit above 6.5. So we're going to say 6 3/4. So 16 inches and 6 3/4. We're going to do my little conversion. I'm going to do that real time. So 675. So he's coming up to 10.8 10.8 feet at the top of his back, so close to 11 feet, which fits into scale. And let's see. So we said 16 inches. And his length is coming up to 25.6 feet. So relatively to scale, the height is there. The length could be a little longer, but obviously when we look at the figure, we don't really notice it. But if you had to like put it into, the full length of a Triceratops, his tail might come out maybe an extra 2 inches longer, and that would really just be it. Other than that, this figure is completely to scale. So yes, and you can see the massive head. The horns are huge. Now, I know a lot of times they say Triceratops has 3 foot long horns, but to be honest with you, they probably are longer than that when you go within the realm of the scale of what a Triceratops full body size should be. And the skull of a Triceratops is bigger than 6 feet tall because a T Rex's skull is 5 feet, which would be a little bit shorter than the length of Owen. And a Triceratops head is even larger than that. There you go, the bottom jawline, he's just a little bit shorter than Owen's length, so just a little bit shy of 6 feet. But when you include the rest of the crest and whatnot, it's even larger. So everything seems to be 100% on point here in terms of scaling, which is great. Getting up close to the figure, let me just zoom in a little bit. You can see the details, and the grain is very nice on the figure. People have commented, and I agree with this. He has Hammond collection detail, just lacking Hammond collection articulation. Though he does, because he's so big, has articulation in the mouth, which is a great feature. His head is on a ball joint, which is perfect for this figure, but I would caution you not to overdo it or he'll get loose. Got the little painting on the little scoots. There's some, I think there's a spot where there's some scoots on him that are not. Yeah. So you hardly even notice it. It's really just on the front leg. But other than that, they have it on the back leg, not the bottom part of the back leg, but the back leg, the top, that nice separate molding for that color. Looks great. Articulating tail on a ball joint. Scan code, which most of you would already have by now. So this figure is amazing. I'm not going to drag this video out too long, but this was the Triceratops everyone was waiting for. It is to scale, but I do want to comment on a few things as I bring out the Hammer Collection T-Rex. Now, let's see. Now, I've mentioned to you guys before though I was a little off in one of my videos, and I don't remember if I corrected myself, but I think I did. The Hammond Collection T-Rex is 24 inches long, and I thought he was 25 inches long. He's actually 24 inches long. Let me just do that math real quick. Which puts him at 38.4 feet long, which is almost the 40 feet long that is accurate to scale. So, we'll give him a break there. For the most part, he is accurate to scale. Now, with that being said, one question I would always have, and it would just always boggle my mind, and it was just one of those things where I couldn't really find a clear answer. I used to always see it say T-Rex is 18 feet tall, and next to a Triceratops at 10 feet tall. I thought that made sense. But then I would then see things referencing that his hip height was, I want to say, 12 or 13 feet tall. And then so it doesn't really align with trying to figure out what's the real height of the T-Rex. Is that hip height, or is that, the head height? Some of those measurements may have come from the olden days where they stood him up very vertical, almost like a human. And obviously that wouldn't make any sense. But then at the same time, as far as if they went off that type of height, but at the same time too, a lot of the depictions don't have him. I see things saying 18 feet, but I know he's not 18 feet at the hip in general. Maybe. I'm not 100% sure. So I always see that going back and forth with what's realistic. So let's assume that, in this one, I have his legs standing up pretty high. So let's assume at the hip, that's his maximum height right there. We're looking at roughly about 8.5. And I think that's what I had him at before in the previous video. Now, where that becomes a bit, I'm not going to say an issue, but it has him at 12.8 feet tall. So we'll just say 13 feet tall at the hips, round it off. Obviously, the rest of him could stand up even taller, and then he would definitely then have that extra size. What I was getting at with this little rant here was that I used to always imagine the T-Rex was standing roughly about 8 feet taller than a Triceratops, which then gave it this kind of advantage of that it's somewhat clear of its horns, its stomach can still get gouged, but between that height difference and having its long, jaws reaching over the head of the Triceratops, so a good depiction in what I would have imagined somewhat. This is not accurate to scale, obviously, but to be kind of more not that size in terms of the size of the Triceratops, but maybe that difference in height to the Triceratops, that it would have been obviously like a bigger Triceratops, but almost that same difference in height that the T-Rex would have had to towering down, would have had that advantage to come down from above. And that was his winning tactic, while the winning tactic of the Triceratops was trying to get that rush to the stomach. The problem with this, if this is correct scaling, where the T-Rex is maybe 13 feet at the hips, maybe 16 feet at the top of his head if it's angled up a little bit higher up, maybe the tail's angled a little bit down, so you have that kind of cross kind of balance. The problem with that, if this is the actual scale of a Triceratops, which it seems to be in terms of the measurements of the Triceratops, a Triceratops would destroy a T-Rex almost 9 times out of 10. It would destroy a T-Rex. If you look at this, you look at the jaws of the T-Rex, of the head of the Triceratops is massive. The T-Rex would not be able to get its bite around that Triceratops. Even the best that it would try, it's just not doing it. You're not going to really be able to imagine, and it would really have a hard time trying to get itself into that position where it could get that bite off the side. And even then, I would honestly tell you that the odds are just really against it, because it has this whole big body weight. Yes, it has better maneuverability, but you just look at the size and the weight of what this Triceratops would be, and it's just really ridiculous. So I'm imagining that in general, a T-Rex would have to be larger. It probably would have to be more fitting to that 18 feet height. I've seen the bone statues in museums before. You know, I can't. I never went with a measuring tape. It's something I definitely want to do sometime. But I don't think that they look 18 feet tall, especially sometimes they're standing on a platform that brings them up almost about 2 feet higher. Triceratops in the museum is nowhere near 10 feet tall. So I'm gonna say that right off the back. But then again, maybe so in the museum, the Triceratops and the T Rex actually fit to scale with each other. Neither one of them is the full height that is spoken about in regards to both of them. So that would give a sense of scale relation. So I guess the best way to sum this up, and I'm sorry that it became a long rant. I guess the best way to sum this up is that if Triceratops is being measured at 10 feet tall and 30 feet long, which is normally the maximum size he's depicted, then you would have to use the maximum size of a T Rex, which is often 18 feet tall and um, roughly about 44, 45 feet long. Otherwise, if you're using the more conservative measurements or the normal measurements of a T Rex, which is maybe 13 feet at the hip, we'll give it maybe an extra 2 feet at the head. So we'll say about 15 feet high, um, 40 feet long at best, maybe sometime even a little bit shorter than that, but we'll say 40 feet long. At that point, you have to use a little bit more conservative measures for the Triceratops to make that fight a more realistic fight. So Triceratops would have to be 8 feet tall, maybe a little shorter, somewhere between 7 and 8 feet tall. He could probably be maybe 30 feet long, maybe he could be a little shorter than that, maybe 25 feet long, but definitely not as heavy, not as bulky. That way it makes sense because one of these measurements are not measuring. You can't have the Triceratops depicted at its full size, and then you have the Tyrannosaurus not depicted at his full size. It just doesn't work when it comes to just the imagining of these two titans going up against each other and thinking that the Tyrannosaurus is coming out of this fight even close, because that's not happening at all. Here, I just want to bring in the red T Rex. And the red T Rex, obviously being that he's smaller than the Hammer Collection T Rex, he is even smaller than this Triceratops comparatively. He doesn't have the bulk in size; he's a little bit taller, but definitely, um, yes, this Triceratops is dangerous. Now, this Triceratops does look kind of similar to the size of the one in the Lost World, which was a lot bigger, if I'm not mistaken, than the one in the first Jurassic Park. But and then the T Rex could kind of go for the correct size you saw in the movie, though sometimes I feel like the one in the movie did look like he could be 18 feet tall. And I've seen some kind of scale pictures that will show like that black background of a grid for Jurassic Park pictures if you Google it, and it'll show like the heights of different dinosaurs. And sometimes I've seen the T Rex, they depicted him as 18 feet tall. So the one in the movie, I think, actually is 18 feet tall. And in that aspect, you can see him really looking that way. It makes sense. And especially when you see the scene where the Gallimimus in the first one are running and he comes out to tackle one of them down. Now, the Gallimimus, when they're running next to the people, you can clearly see that they tower over Grant. They possibly could be somewhere about, I want to say, my memory is not exact, but I'll definitely know they're taller than him. So I want to say maybe 8 feet, 9 feet, maybe you could stretch to 9 feet, but definitely about like 8 feet taller than Grant. So with that being said, let's assume Grant is 6 feet tall. They're looking like about maybe 3 feet taller than Grant, or one of the kids, or like a little bit less than one of the kids' height above Grant. You put him on a shoulder. Then you look at the T Rex, and the T Rex look like he's standing about double the size of the Gallimimus. So at that point, it's a good kind of depiction to say the T Rex in the movie could very well be 18 feet tall, and then that would definitely fit with the scale of a 10-foot tall Triceratops. And like I said, obviously, you guys know on this channel, I am super big on scale, so I just kind of like doing that. Here you can see the Jeep here, and the Triceratops towers over the Jeep. And based on the scaling of being 10 foot tall, and this one's scaled at 25, I think I had him at 25 feet long, or a little bit slightly above it, 25 point something. You could see here that he is longer than the truck, which will probably be about 20 feet long, maybe a little bit more than 15 feet long, and obviously not very tall, but most trucks aren't. They're a little bit taller than Owen, which means they're maybe 7 feet tall or 6.5 feet tall, but definitely nowhere near the size of the Triceratops. Sorry that the angle that you guys are seeing is not the same angle that I'm seeing at when it's been low, but definitely it's towering above that. I just wanted to adjust it so you guys can get that to see that and get that feel of that. This is roughly like ground level height to them. Matter of fact, that's ground level height, and you could see there how big that Triceratops just towers over everything. All right, you guys. So this has been the review of the Triceratops Habitat Defender, and sorry that it's been a long time. I hope that my particular review brings you something a little differently than the previous reviews that you've already watched. Being that, like I said, this has been out for a long time now. It definitely is the definitive one. I'm going to throw a link in the description for Amazon. I have seen this figure not that long ago go down to like about $15 on Amazon. So if you catch it or wait for the sale, when it's on sale, you can stock up on these and make a herd if you want. Um, that's an option. With that being said, you guys, as always, first off, comment down below what your thoughts on this figure, because I really think this figure is awesome, and I just want to know what your guys' thoughts on it in particular too. Did you buy it? Are you looking to buy it? I know it's been out for a while now. Do you want to make a herd from it? I don't know how you guys do your collecting. You like making herds of dinosaurs? Like, comment, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.